Islam, Islam, Islam. Praise Allah. I rise giving praise to Allah, the Lord, governor, cherisher, sustainer, and ruler of the worlds. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, True Ali. Ameen. So, listen, I want everybody to like, subscribe the channel, you know, so that you can get this information. I'm going to be doing this on a more regular basis because, as I understand it, the people really need this truth. So, I just want to say I love y'all with the never dying love. This is Grand Sheik L Love Ill, and I'm here to give it to y'all just like that. So, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going over a series of documentations, a series of speeches from the Prophet Noble Jali, the Holy Prophet Noble Jali, as well as demonstrating some of the measures from the Circle Seven Koran. Um, I was led by the Spirit to begin to put the truth out there because the people are so sick. And what the Prophet has brought, though, is the medicine to what ails us. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to demonstrate this measure. I will be reading from the Circle Seven Koran, the Moorish Temple of America. See that? And I will also be going over a series of speeches within the Moorish Literature pamphlet. So, that being said, uh, just to give a little background on myself, I've been a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America since I was 18 years old. So, coming to this new year, that would mean that would be 30 years as a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And it served me well. Uh, you all may recognize me from various YouTube videos that I have done along with my colleague Sheikis Mohawk D Love Ill. And so, just to clarify that, I'm going to start off reading some of the speeches. Okay. There are a few in here, quite a few. Um, Eventually, if you keep following me, we're going to make sure that we go over all of the literature so that everybody is attuned to get this truth. Now, there are a couple speeches in here. I'm going to start with this one. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all of these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so that I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It comes to it all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world would not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And that's one of my favorite speeches because it explains the necessity of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali in these days and times. And he's still on the scene, and he's needed more now than ever before. So I'm going to go through a few more of these speeches here. Here's another one that's read at every meeting. Prophet warns all Muslims, governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. Friday, January 15, 1929. I hereby inform all members that they are to end all radical agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turbans and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Drew Ali. All right. That's one of the meetings one of the demonstrations that's read at every meeting. All right. All right. Okay. Here's a few more. Prophet makes plea to the nation. Friday, March 1st, 1929. Our divine and national movement stands for the specific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I, the prophet, am applying to all loyal, faithful Moors, members, and the American citizens to help me in my great uplifting acts of uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. For I have suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of this divine and national movement. I know all true American citizens are identified by national descent names to answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the United States of America. That is why I'm calling on all true national citizens to help me morally and financially in my great work I am doing to help this national government. For without a free national name, without a descent flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of the government in which we live. This is from your true and divine prophet unto all American and foreign sympathizers, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Islam. So listen, I'm going to start getting into these lessons, and this is for, as I read the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Circle 7, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guiding of this Father God, Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity, back to the highest plane of life with his Father God, Allah. The Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, know thyself and your Father God, Allah, that you may learn to love instead of hate. Every man needs to worship on his own vine and fig tree, the uniting of Asia. Know thyself in Allah, the genealogy of Jesus, life works of Jesus in India, in Europe, and Africa, in the land of Egypt. Noble Drew Ali, the prophet and founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, to redeem the people from their sinful ways. Know thyself, the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. Know thyself and thy Father God, Allah. The genealogy of Jesus with 18 years of the events, life, works, and teachings in India, Europe, and Africa. These events occurred before he was 30 years of age. These secret lessons are for all of those that love Jesus and desire to know about his life, works, and teachings. Dear readers, do not falsely use these lessons. They are for good, peace, and happiness for all of those that love Jesus. Dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones that they may learn to love instead of hate. Dear fathers, by these lessons you can set your house in order and your children will learn to love instead of to hate. The lessons of this pamphlet are not for sale, but for the sake of humanity, as I am a prophet and a servant is worthy of his hire, you can receive this pamphlet at expense. The reason these lessons have not been known is because the Muslims of India, Egypt, and Palestine had these secrets and kept them back from the outside world. And when the time appointed by Allah, they loosened the keys and freed these secrets. And for the first time in ages, have these secrets been delivered in the hands of the Muslims of America. All authority and rights for publishing this pamphlet of 1927 by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the Industrious Act of the Muslims of Northwest and Southwest Africa. These are the Moabites, Hammatites, Canaanites who were driven out of the land of Canaan by Joshua and received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle in that portion of Egypt. In later years, they formed themselves kingdoms. These kingdoms are called this day Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, etc. So, just to be clear, there has to be a distinction that's made between the present Moroccan Empire and the Moorish Empire. So that means that we was holding it down on both sides. So that, just to be clear on that, all right? So now we get deeper into these lessons. I have so many favorites in this Circle Seven Koran, but one of the things that's needed today is unity. So I'm going to draw off of the chapter of unity. All right. The divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. Chapter 36. The holy instructions of unity. The gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, and he appointed to every one his portion, in what measure seemeth good unto himself. Hath he endowed thee with wisdom? Hath he enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Communicate it to the ignorant for their instruction. Communicate it to the wise for thine own improvement. True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise man doubteth often, and changeth his mind. The fool is obstinate, and doubteth not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance. The pride of emptiness is an abomination, and to talk much is the foolishness of folly. Nevertheless, it is the part of wisdom to hear with patience their impertinence, and to pity their absurdity. Yet be not puffed up in thy own conceit, neither boast of superior understanding. The clearest human knowledge is but blindness and folly. The wise man filleth his imperfections and is humble. He laboreth in vain for his own approbation. But the fool peepeth in the shallow stream of his own mind, and is pleased with the pebbles which he seeth at the bottom. He bringeth them up and showeth them as pearls, and with the applause of his brethren delighteth himself. He boasteth of attainments and things that are of no worth, and but where it is a shame to be ignorant, there he have no understanding. Even in the path of wisdom he toileth after folly, and shame and disappointment are the reward of his labor. But the wise man cultivates his mind with knowledge. The improvements of the art is his delight, and their utility to the public crowneth with honor. Nevertheless, the attainment of virtue he accounteth as the highest learning, and the science of happiness is the study of his life. So I recall sharing this information with a lot of my brothers and sisters. And the problem is that far too many of the Moors believe that this information is outdated, or they think that they know it all, and they have they believe they have this deep spiritual connection to Allah and His Prophet. But what I have found throughout the years is that you have to be consistent in studying these lessons. Okay, for example, I've studied these lessons, like I recall when I first joined, and the lessons were clear. I could understand it then. But as the years went by, I began to see things from a different perspective. Like as you get deeper and deeper, it's like the bud unfolds as the flower unfolds. So after 5 years in, I had a deeper perspective. But even after 10 years, I had an even more deeper perspective. And as the years passed, I got more and more deeper into the lessons, gaining a perspective. So there's a reason why the Prophet Noble Ali instructs us that 18 years is the length of time that it takes for a mastermind. So if you've been in the organization for 18 years, then that means that you've attained your master's degree, which means that you have the, so they don't call it a master's degree for nothing. And you have to go to what? School for 18 years before you become a master or mastermind. That's the idea. So many of us have this microwave mentality and believing that after a few years in and you have knowledge of the truth and that you can completely break this down. And typically it takes at least 12 years to really understand, and when it really begins to break down, you understand. So this is years and years of studying your lessons. Now, when you join the Moorish Science Temple of America, we have holy day meetings, and then we have Sunday school. So that means out of 52 weeks, now consider this, one Moorish year, 7 days, because you're going to count 7 days in one Moorish year, all right? So it's 52 weeks in a year. That's 7, right? 7 again. And so out of those 7 holy days, well, 52 holy days, and 52 Sunday schools, that's over 104 meetings that you would have. So when you do the math, 104 meetings per Gregorian calendar year, and then you multiply that by 18, then that would justify, and that would mean that that's how long and how many Now, consider this: 104 meetings per year. This is if you're in attendance at every meeting. Now, ordinarily, we understand that most members don't make their meetings all the way through like that. Okay, so we had a term that we would refer to and call the Moors, some Moors, holiday Moors. These are the Moors that show up at all of the meetings, holiday meetings. So that means that they would attend the Prophet's birthright, Moorish Tag Day, Moorish Independence, and Moorish Memorial Day, which is the 20th of July. And then they would attend convention, which is between October the 15th and October the 20th. So and then of course the Prophet's birthright, which is our Moorish Christmas, right? So those Moors would only go to those meetings because I guess they figured, well, this is the most important time. But in order for you to really get the fullness of these lessons and effectively have an understanding that's going to be unbreakable, you have to attend your meetings faithfully. You see, this is when you get the greatest benefit. And then things will begin to open up to you in your understanding as it relates to Allah and His Prophet. So we're going to get back into these lessons. We're going to read a few speeches, right? One of my favorites is the one I'm about to read now. This is a masterpiece of religious literature, Secrets of Other Creeds Revealed. Friday, December 15th, 1928. The Prophet Noble Ali has spent many hours preparing the latest edition of the Koran, which will be a masterpiece of religious literature. To Americanize the Oriental idea of Islam involves many changes that are more or less negative to the main purpose of the Islamic religion. Such changes are carefully considered with the idea to avoid changing the complexion of the original text. The philosophy of the ancient prophets is the main initiative in the compilation of the Koran. No thoughts of propaganda enter this work, as has been the case of many former religious works such as the Bible and other books of creed. The sole purpose of the prophet in giving such a message to the world is to save fallen humanity. When a compiler attempts to inject propaganda into a work of this kind, there arises a need to cover the true text in order to prevent a clash with the truth and ideas involved in such propaganda. Former works of this kind have been either hindered or helped the nations proportionately to the adherence to the truth as to the original purpose of keeping the ignorant in such a state. It is hard to resist the temptation to use this medium for gain. Hence, many of the former treaties on works of this kind have been the means to foster ideas of the unscrupulous, wherein they desired to use religious influence for gain. The many secrets known to the prophet that could be used for the salvation of the nation were either left out or colored to the extent that their meaning was made void. Such is not the case with this edition of the Koran. All the secrets of the ages known to man are put into this work. The secrets known only to the Magi are here revealed. The reading of the stars, the interpretation of marriage relations, the understanding of the span of life, and others such as has been kept from the Occidental world are in this book boldly brought out. The Koran, Americanized as it will be, can be bought in a few weeks. It will be sent to all governors of the Moorish Science Temple of Americas by the Prophet Noble Ali. So we have to understand that we have the unfoldment of, like, for example, it's been Americanized. Now, this is not to invalidate any of the other great works of the time history that we have, such as the Holy Koran of Mecca and Holy Bible and other religious texts, the Bhagavad Gita. Uh, we honor all true and divine prophets, Yeshua, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, or Jesus, right? So that being said, I want to read something from the Circle Seven Koran once again. Chapter 45. Now, before I start reading, I want to give a breakdown as to the Circle Seven and the fact that it was divinely prepared, right? Um, there are certain parts of the Koran that you can get look at other texts to get and extracted information and jewels from. So it was masterfully done the way the prophet compiled the Circle Seven Koran. Whereas you have the first chapter, which is the creation and the fall of man. It's actually a three-part drama, right? The creation and the fall, which is in the first chapter, and then the redemption of man, which is the rest of the Circle Seven Koran. So you break that down into three parts: the creation and the fall, right? And then chapter 11 goes more in depth into the creation, and then the redemption, which is the part of unto thee I grant. That's another part of the Circle Seven Koran. And then the final parts, which is chapter 45 to 48, which was penned by the prophet himself, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this measure right here. This is chapter 45. The divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. Chapter 45. The divine origin of the Asiatic nations. The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Koran of Mecca for the teaching and instructing of all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations. The Moorish, who were ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. The Egyptians, who were the Hammatites and of a direct descendant of Mizraim. The Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese, and Chinese. The Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan. The Asiatic nations and countries in North, South, and Central America. The Moorish Americans and Mexicans in North America. Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America. Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. The Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed of Mecca, beginning from Muhammad the first, the founders of the uniting of Islam by the command of the great universal God, Allah. Chapter 46. The beginning of Christianity. The foundation of Christianity began in Rome. The Roman nations founded the first church, of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. Jesus himself was of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites and the inhabitants of Africa, seeking to redeem his people in those days from the pressure of the pale-skinned nations of Europe. Rome crucified him according to their law. Then Europe had peace for a long time until Muhammad I came upon the scene and fulfilled the works of Jesus of Nazareth. The holy teachings of Jesus was to the common people, to redeem them from under the great pressure of the hands of the unjust, that the rulers and the rich would not oppress the poor, Also that the lion and the lamb may lay down together, and neither will be harmed when morning came. These teachings were not accepted by the rulers, neither by the rich, because they loved the principles of the Ten Commandments. Through the Ten Commandments, the rulers and the rich live, while the poor suffer and die. The lamb is the poor people, the lion is the rulers and the rich. And through love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, all men are one and equal to seek their own destiny and to worship under their own vine and fig tree, after the principles of the holy and divine laws of their forefathers. All nations of the earth in these modern days are seeking peace, but there is but one true and divine way that peace may be obtained in these days, and it is through love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice being taught universally to all nations in all lands. Islam. Chapter 47. Egypt, the capital empire of the dominion of Africa. The inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family were second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of the Mexican, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the father and the son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. With their Hittite, Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and habitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even into the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands, before the great earthquake, which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and it extends eastward from the river Nile westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all of the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the holy land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change a man from the descendant nature of his forefathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. These holy and divine laws are from the prophet Noble Ali, the founder of the Uniting of the Moorish Temple of America. These laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all the temples of the Moorish Temple of America, that they will learn to open their meeting and guide it according to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Every subordinate temple of the Grand Major Temple is to form under the covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and create their own laws and customs in conjunction with the laws of the Holy Prophet and the Grand Temple. I, the Prophet Noble Ali, was sent by the great God Allah to warn all Asiatics of America to repent from their sinful ways before that great and awful day which is sure to come. The time has come when every nation must worship under its own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America, who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father, and strayed after gods of Europe, whom they knew nothing. The end of time and the fulfilling of the prophecies. The last prophet in these days is Noble Ali, who was prepared divinely in due time by Allah to redeem men from their sinful ways and to warn them of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. John the Baptist was the forerunner of Jesus in those days to warn and stir up the nation and prepare them to receive the divine creed which was to be brought by Jesus. In these modern days, there came a forerunner who was divinely prepared by the great God Allah, and his name is Marcus Garvey, who did teach and warn the nations of the earth to prepare to meet the coming prophet, who was to bring the true and divine creed of Islam, and his name is Noble Drali, who was prepared and sent to this earth by Allah to teach the old time religion and the everlasting gospel to the sons of men, that every nation shall and must worship under their own vine and fig tree and return to their own and be one with their Father God Allah. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a lawfully chartered and incorporated organization. Any subordinate temple that desires to receive the charter, the Prophet has them to issue to every state throughout the United States, etc., that the world may hear and know the truth, that among the descendants of Africa, there is still much wisdom to be learned in these days, for the redemption of the sons of men under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We as a clean and pure nation, descendant from the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion, because our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed for the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. Therefore, we are returning the church of Christianity back to the European nations as it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. The covenant of the great God Allah. Honor thy mother, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earthland, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. Come, all ye Asiatics of America, and hear the truth about your nationality and birthrights, because you are not negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed that you will learn to love instead of hate. We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come and link yourselves with the family of nations. We honor all true and divine prophets. So I just hope that it's my greatest hope that the Moors understand that these lessons have to be hammered in until they're a part of every part. So there's a reason why, there's supposed to be a certain amount of repetition. And it's a lot of us that think we know, but we don't know. And there are a lot of us that are being what we told instead of being what we know. And this is part of the problem. You have many challenges out there that profess to have this truth, and there are too many people that don't study to show themselves approved, because far too many of our people are being tricked and hoodwinked. All right, and this is people within the temple and outside the temple. There's more people that's being tricked inside the temple than you would think, and many of us have began to demonstrate this parrot degree instead of being a demonstrator. Being a pointer and a block of wood can do the same. Far too many of our people are not living these lessons, but they're shouting loud, slobbering all over the podium. They're not being the message that they bring, but they're pointing the way. And there's far too many of us that are involved in demonstrations just like that. Just to give you all a background on me and my history and my story. I remember when I first joined the Moorish Science Temple of America. It was one of the most exciting times in my life. I remember when I first walked into the temple and I saw the Grand Sheikh, the Assistant Grand Sheikh. I saw everybody. This was at a community center This was the location was on 67th and King Drive. It was uh, fire. It was right across the street from a firehouse and the community center. The Moors were either renting or they were utilizing that space. We didn't even have our own temple. You know, we were meeting. This was soon after my Grand Sheik. Originally, is Brother P. Lee Davis Ill Grand Sheik. He is a very good brother. Um, he genuinely had aspirations. He was going to school to become a pilot. All right. Now, this is a man that was basically putting action behind his words. And I remember his daughter, she would come to the temple. Um, she was a beautiful soul, beautiful sister, right? And I recall it when I first, the scene that I first came into when I first went to the temple. There were three sisters there. Uh, Sister Judy Menziel, Sister D. O'Neill Bay, and Sister Patricia Newmill, right? And these were the three sisters that, they will always be at their meetings. I think Sister Menziel, it would be sometimes when she wouldn't make it to the meeting or whatever, but they were both, all of those sisters were basically making their meetings. Sister Judy Menziel, she passed away a while back, but those other two sisters remained faithful. The assistant Grand Sheik at the time was Brother B. Braswell Bay, Brother E. Braswell Bay, pardon me, and Brother Irie Davis Ill, right? I believe he was the business manager, all right? And there's a few other Moors that charges to my head, not my heart, Moors, but I'm just going back down memory lane to explain to you all. Um, I recall that also one of the sisters, her name was Carolyn Bolton Ill. She passed away recently. My condolences to her and the family, and her son, Brother Nathaniel Bolton Ill. He's a sheik, all right? And these are some good Moors, all right? And what I discovered and I found out was that I had to, I brought my whole family into the organization because I was so ignited by the truth. It's like it grew on me like a wildfire, and I give thanks and eternal praise for the good brother Robert Bishop Bay, who actually introduced me to Moorish science, and I credit that brother because he did. It was destined for me to be who I am, and it was due to the persistence of this good brother that I joined. You know, he kept telling me, explaining to me, man, you need to come to the meeting, and I kept saying, this is like during the time I was in high school, okay? And oh yeah, let me not forget brother D. He's also a past Supreme Grand Sheik, or past Grand Sheik, pardon me. So, like I said, this brother introduced me to Moorish science, and we would hang out and we would kick it. I actually remember having a choice between going into the lodge or joining the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I'm happy to say that at the young, tender age of 18, I made the right decision. I joined the Moorish Science Temple of America. But, it could have been a different way. I could have joined the lodge. I had that choice. That was where the decisions that I had to make in my young life, right? So that being said, I recall that I brought my whole family in. My younger brother joined, brother D. Louis Zill, and then soon after that he joined in 1995. And then soon after, the rest of the family came. And I'm grateful to Allah for my mother, Sheikah's or D. Laville, because it was through the initiative that she took where we all joined. And most of my younger siblings, they grew up in the temple. So they had that background, they had that foundation, right? And so, but what I discovered is that as I went, there was a catalyst that occurred, and this is documented in the book that's going to be coming out really soon, inshallah. Um, the book should be dropping within the month of March. Praise Allah. We had a slight delay, and my apologies for that because it was my intentions to drop this measure in on the Prophet's birthright. But we're going to still celebrate the Prophet Noble Jali's birthright, but as the added benefit to the nation, we're going to bring that book out in its entirety, and that will be in the third month, which is March, which is going to be in the spring. So that's when the new life is going to manifest and everything's going to be fresh in the air and yada, 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 right? So I want to give a special shout out to my sister, uh, honorary Love Ill. Her name is Keisha Ali Love, right? And the strength of that sister amazes me even to this day. You know, she was fearless in her representation of, and I actually had the honor of sharing these lessons with her before she changed forms, right? But it was due to that. That was the catalyst that triggered my whole family. Because when my sister changed forms, it gave me a different outlook on life. Because that's when I recognized that we only here for a certain amount of time. And that's what motivated me to become active, to become more active in the temple. And it was because of that dedication that after Brother Robert Bishop Bay had went through, attended at the Adept Chamber, I went through and I attended my meetings. And the following year, I was going through the Adept Chamber. And that was it was in the month of September 1997. However, there have been some changes in the viewpoints that I have and in the discovery of certain things, doing digging, research, studying, investigation. We had found out that we had to be what we know. Now, there was a custom for the Moors to observe the convention during September. But due to research, study, and investigation, we found out that it was October. Now, there's pictorial proof of this, that October is the month of the convention. October 15th through the 20th was the first convention that was held. And not even a year later, the Prophet Noble Jali passed forms. But for some odd reason, uh, Emilio changed the date to the September. And So when I joined, that was the time the convention was held. All right. Now, it's not by coincidence or mistake that the times of the convention is October the 15th to October the 20th, which is in the sign of Libra, which brings justice to the manifest. Okay. However, that was not the situation when I joined, when I first joined. Uh, in fact, it was common, it was believed that September was the month, was the correct month. But it was through digging, research, study, and investigation that I discovered that through document 1155 1822, by one document that was dropped by Brother Jesse Shelby L. This was in October, no, this is January 8th, 1935. This document was dropped. And it was at that time I discovered that the convention was supposed to be held in October rather than in September. So what I did was I sent information out to all the various temples to show that that was the original date, and I did this at my expense. Uh, I realized, and this was like after Brother P. Lee Davis Ill changed forms, Brother Braswell Bay took his position, right? Well, it wasn't, while it was popular belief amongst the members that September was the month of the convention, I discovered through research, study, investigation that it was actually October 15th to the 20th that we were supposed to be having convention. And understanding that there was no formal indication that the prophet, the intentions of the prophet Nubu Jali was to change that day. He passed away on July 20th, 1929. Okay, so it was not enough time for uh, to come into determination that the convention would be changed to that date. So there had to be a reason why that was changed, and that's when I began to question the leadership, the integrity of the leadership, because as the document indicated, there were ones that wandered away from the rules and usages of such Moorish Science Temple of America. And I put together an affidavit to that effect to show that there were ones that wandered away from the rules and usages of such Moorish Science Temple of America. Uh, one, several things had changed. One of the things was the change of the dates from October the 15th to the 20th to September the 15th to the 20th. Another change came about with the changing of the monthly adept meetings. So that means that the adepts are supposed to come together once a month, where an accounting of all the finances was supposed to be made. Also, there was stock sold. This is among other things. These were changes that were made within the Moorish Science Temple of America. Now, this is part of the reason why things had to be brought back to a certain pristineness. In other words, that's just part of the reason for the motivation for this administration to demonstrate as the Moorish Science Temple of America as a body politic, to specifically show that we were fundamentalists. In other words, we didn't, we were not going to go along with the changes or the innovations that had been introduced to the temple. We saw it as our divine duty to maintain the integrity of the temple by returning the dates back to October 15th to the 20th. And many Moors that had received the information had followed suit because there was a time, and I recall, that all of these Moors were demonstrating to September the 15th to the 20th. And the only reason why it was challenged is because we put out the proof by demonstrating that letter or that measure from Brother Jesse Shelby Ill. Because had it not been for that, we would not have had proof that we were supposed to maintain the dates of the convention for that time. But instead of being what we were told, we demonstrated the measure of being the message that we brought. And I'm proud to say that I had a lot to do with that, Islam. So we, and everything, all the literature shows that, if it wasn't for the courageousness of this administration, we would still be having it in September rather than October. So there's some honors that should be due to us, but we're going to it's going to all come out when we drop that book. And many of the people that have been plagiarizing, you know exactly who you are. You will get your justice, right? Because, see, justice must eventually take its course. This is the way of righteousness. See. And far too many of you have been what you've been told instead of being what you know. And this is part of the reason why we have a lot of the situations that we have today. But I want to get back into these lessons. We're going to close it out in a little while. One of the special chapters that I like, one of my favorites, is Magistrate and Subject. The reason why I like this chapter is because it gives you a perspective of sovereignty. And in fact, this is one of the few times that sovereignty is mentioned in the Circle Seven Koran, Islam. So without further ado, we're going to read the Divine Instructions from the Holy Prophet, chapter 29, Magistrate and Subject. O thou, the favorite of heaven, whom the sons of men, thy equals, have agreed to raise to sovereign power, and set as a ruler over themselves, consider the importance and the ends and the importance of their trust, far more than the dignity and height of thy station. Thou art clothed in purple and seated on a throne. The crown of majesty invested thy temples. The scepter of power is placed in thy hand. But not for thyself were these ensigns given, not meant for thine own, but the good of thy kingdom. The glory of the king is the welfare of his people. His power and dominion rest on the hearts of his subjects. The mind of a great prince is exalted with the grandeur of his situation. He evolveth high things and searcheth for business worthy of his power. He calleth together the wise men of his kingdom. He consulteth among them with freedom and heareth the opinions of them all. He looketh among his people with discernment. He discovereth the abilities of men and employeth them according to their merits. His magistrates are just, his ministers are wise, and the favorite of his bosom deceiveth him not. They smile upon the arts, and they flourish. The science improved beneath the culture of his hand. With the learned and ingenious, he delighteth himself. He kindleth in their breasts emulation. The glory of his kingdom is exalted by their labors. The spirit of the merchant who extendeth his commerce, the skill of the farmer who enricheth his lands, the ingenuity of the artist, the improvements of the scholar, all of these he honoreth with his favor, or rewardeth with his bounty. He planteth new colonies. He buildeth strong ships. He openeth rivers for convenience. He formeth harbors for safety. His people abound in riches, and the strength of his kingdom increaseth. He frameth his statutes with equity and wisdom. His subjects enjoy the fruits of their labor in security, and their happiness consists of the observance of the law. He foundeth his judgments on the principle of mercy, but in the punishment of offenders, he is strict and impartial. His ears are open to the complaints of his subjects. He restraineth the hands of their oppressors, and he delivereth them from their tyranny. His people therefore look up to him as a father, with reverence and love. They consider him as the guardian of all that they enjoy. Their affection unto him begetteth in his breast a love of the public. The security of their happiness is the object of his care. No murmurs against him arise in their hearts. The machinations of his enemies endanger not the state. His subjects are faithful and firm in his cause. They stand in his defense as a wall of brass. The army of the tyrant flieth before them, as chaff before the wind. Security and peace bless the dwellings of his people, and glory and strength encircle his throne forever. Now, I just want to point out a few things. The fact that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought us what is known as a constitutional theocratic monarchy. But many of the Moors have not studied long enough to be able to master that. You have far too many of us that get out of prison and believe that we're in a mindset to set up and deal with the government. But as this chapter laid out, and this is I might add and point out that this is the one time that sovereignty is mentioned. It says, "O thou the favorite of heaven, whom the sons of men, thy equals, have agreed to raise to sovereign power and set as a ruler over themselves." This is the one time that sovereign is mentioned in the Circle Seven Koran. This also means that we're supposed to have a government of sovereignty. You know, there are two forms of government. You have republics and you have kingdoms or empires. Kingdom, empire, princedom, kingdom, sheikdom, those are all the same. Those would, and the difference between a republic form of government and a monarchy is this. A republic is a government that's ran by the people, for the people. A monarchy is always headed by a king or emperor or a sultana, a sultan, you understand? So those are the difference as far as it relates to governments. And that's the only two types of government in the world: kingdoms and republics. Now, the issue is that part of the issue is that many of our people don't understand where the seat of power lies. And they want to come out and they want to become the sultan of this and the emperor of that and all of this. And many of the people take for granted the terms or the titles of nobility. And granted, you have the United States Constitution makes provisions for those who have nobility. But you don't just get to wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm the king." It doesn't work like that. Just like it says here, it says, "Whom the sons of men, thy equals, have agreed to raise to sovereign power and set as a ruler over themselves." So you don't just get to wake up one day, "Oops, I'm the king." No, it don't work like that. You see, that's part of the reason why the Prophet Noble Ali stated that our ruler, who is our ruler, Sultan. So, if you are truly following the Prophet Noble Ali to a destiny that's not unknown, then you are not. You have a king, or you have a sovereign, or else you just out there and you just going off the seat of your pants. You know, it amazes me that you have a lot of these ones that believe that they're fit to run the government. And they try to do everything they can to circumvent the power and authority of the Prophet Noble Ali, who actually set us up with the government. And the last thing that he left us as is a body politic. But now you have all these people screaming back and forth that they're the body politic this, body politic that. And no, you're not. You don't have the power and authority because Allah did not appoint you. And so you're self-serving, you're serving yourself and your own selfish motives, because this is the model to everything that the Prophet Noble Ali bought. If you're not following this manual here, then you have it all wrong. You don't know enough. Your kung fu is not good enough, which is why the European still got his foot on your neck. You can't do what you know. This thing is just like the Prophet Noble Ali said: your way you want, your way you will have, but your way just won't do. You know, so that's the problem. And there's a reason why you see certain ones out here and they have these videos on these satirical videos that's been made up of them. You know, I don't have to go into any names. You all can do research and find out for yourself who these characters actually are. The fact that they feel like they can take over the situation, and the Prophet Noble Ali was more than qualified. See, the problem is that they have not become students of this man here. He's the man. See, that's the man of the hour right there. And they think that because he passed away or he changed forms that he's dead, and that's nothing further from the truth. Because see, this is an honorable demonstration, and Allah is guiding us still. He's the guider. That's why it says in the Circle Seven in our Moorish American prayer, Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation. So by this being a constitutional theocratic monarchy, just look at that. That's a breathful. That's a mouthful, right? Constitutional because it's a divine constitution and bylaws that we adhere to, right? Theocratic means that it's headed by God, Allah, in the monarchy, which means it's a kingdom. Now, many of us don't understand what that means. And far too many of us try to circumvent, or we try to jerry rig or hoodwink the people into thinking that we have some type of power and authority. You know, you got all these different characters popping up like, you know, toast, thinking that after a few years that they have the authority and power, which they do not. Because it's just like the Prophet Noble Ali said, it's not, let me read it directly from what he said. Because he left everything has already been laid out. And there's a reason why he did what he did. Okay, I'm looking for that other speech. See that's the reason why these lessons have to be hammered in until they're a part of every part. You don't just get away with thinking that you're going to take charge of the situation and you're not qualified. It don't work like that. You have to be qualified to take charge of the situation. You know, far too many of us have this microwave mentality. You know, I had some people that were under me at one point, and they were not patient. So they went into other demonstrations thinking that because somebody else told them, not being what they know, but because they were told that was the way. You know, that's not the way to go. Okay. Now I'm going to read this again because, well, I'm going to read this and I'm going to read this other speech because this is another one that was read to all of the meeting, every meeting this was recited. But I'm going to read these two so that people can understand exactly where we're coming from with this. So now I'm reading this again, and it's worthy of another read. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy. They were jealous of this man about me and the movement now by the same people of outside of the nation that claimed that I was only a joke and unreal. They was laughing at me, right? But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they may take charge of the situation. And you think that's changed? They still trying. I have notified all of these things to you long ago in the past. It is to the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds, the ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world would not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. And see, that's what a lot of these characters don't get. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past for years. Prophet Noble Ali. Now, here's another one. This is the cold measure, too. To the members of the Moorish Temple of America, Islam. This is for the instructions. This is the instructions from your prophet Noble Ali. Be faithful unto your forefather divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on. But the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I Noble Ali. That's why many hearts have been turned to stone, and many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they're trying every weak mind drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest. The ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Jew Ali. See, you have to understand that this was during the time where the Prophet Noble Jew Ali was being challenged. It wasn't all smooth and silky as some may try to make it out to be. There were some challenges. The Prophet Noble Jew Ali had serious challenges. He had challengers. There was one brother that stood up in front of a crowd of 1,500 people and said, "Follow me and I will see you through." That was Brother Lomax Bey. Now, this was a Moor that was basically considered to be one of the Prophet's right hands. He was the Grand Sheikh of the temple and everything. Okay. And he actually did that. All right. It says, these, and I'm reading an excerpt. It says, these two brothers are empowered by the prophet to investigate bids, etc., of the temple number 4 in Detroit, Michigan, because Lomax Bey has violated all divine laws of the prophet, even before the prophet's face, February 15th, 1929. He claims that the prophet has no more power and the finance from Detroit would be in his charge. He wouldn't send any to the prophet. He yelled with a loud voice, "Look at me. I will guide you through." This is lawful and living evidence spoken before 1,500 people, and the prophet was also present. I, the prophet, declare his office vacant and the name of Grand Governor discharged. He can only be a member, according to law, because the Moorish Temple of America is a divine organization. Each temple is under supreme guidance of the prophet. When a man fails after being placed head of the temple by the prophet of obeying our divine laws and constitution, he is a traitor, an enemy of the divine creed, and unloyal to the national government USA, which is to which the movement is to make men and women better citizens. From the prophet Noble Drew Ali. So you see, the prophet Noble Drew Ali was not without his challenges. He had challenges to his claim to authority. And this is something that was done right in front of his face. He was in the presence of this. This was done in the prophet's presence. This man had enough gall to stand up against the authority of the prophet while he was still in the flesh. So you can imagine what others are doing now that he's no longer in the flesh with us. But that doesn't mean that Allah is not guiding. He's still guiding us. And he's still protecting this movement. So just to be clear, if you haven't mastered this, then you are not on, it's not, that's, you're not, that's not it. You're on something else. And the Prophet Noble Jali did not bring you a republic. He brought you a divine, something divine. He brought you a constitutional theocratic monarchy, not a republic. And just because he changed forms does not mean he's dead. He is still in his office. And there are those of us that are loyal, completely loyal to him, not what man say. You have a lot of people that have switched up and they began to believe something other than what's been taught by the prophet. Uh, they may change up the flag and put certain things, and he bought everything. He bought us everything it takes to save the nation. There were no need for any innovations beyond what he brought. A red flag with a five-pointed star in the center, representing the five divine principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So, who are you to think that you can put a sword in that demonstration? That's not what the prophet brought. You see, there are many that feel like they can create innovations and they can do their own thing. And this is all an attempt to take you away from the fundamental principles that were set up and demonstrated by the prophet Noble Ali. He bought us everything it takes to save a nation. So that means that everything that we have, everything that we need, we already have. And it's when you think that you know something and you know more than the prophet Noble Ali, when you get outside of this, you don't understand what he did for us. That's when you're wrong. That's when you're straying after the strange gods and you know nothing about that. When you are involved in these innovations, you think that you know something and you really don't know. You're just being what you've been told. Your grandman said this, your grandman said that. You don't know for yourself because you don't study. You have to study to show yourself approved. You have to spend so many years behind those walls to understand. How long did it take for John and Yahshua to get the measure? It was 18 years. And many of you are jumping out here after a couple years thinking you know something. You don't know. You're being what you've been told. You don't know. You haven't verified or checked it out with anybody. You just think you know something. See, that lower self is tricky. It'll have you thinking that you have it all figured out. And you don't know anything. How could you? As a matter of fact, this is part of the reason why he said the third and fourth generation will see the good of his works. Because our people, it took that long for our people to come into the consciousness to understand what he bought. He said it'd be 50 years before you figured out what I've done for you. This was 2 generations later. I'm part of the 4th generation. My mother's part of the 3rd generation. So he said it would be during our lifetimes that we would see the good that he bought. Even though many of us are impatient, the prophet is right in his act. He's right on time. He demonstrated that measure perfectly. So with that being said, I give honors to all of you that joined me. This is not about the numbers. It's about the faithfulness in the hearts. We don't do things for show. This is personal. This is coming from my heart to yours. This is for me demonstrating the office of Grand Sheik, setting the record straight, and making sure that the pristineness of the prophet is manifest. It's not about the show. It's not about it's like the prophet said, he could hold up one hand and have fingers left over if he can count the ones that was with him. And he said that in a crowd full, a room, standing room only crowd. So what does that mean? That means that it's not, it's only a few people. It's always only been a faithful few. He was looking around and said, I don't know why all of y'all are here. It's only a faithful few. There's only a few riders. Because far too many of us are being what we've been told, not what we know to be a fact. You see, y'all look at Brother Loveville and y'all think, oh, well, he's just trying to do this. But no, I have a personal vested interest in making sure I do my job well and making sure that I'm going to be blessed for the good deeds that I sow in the flesh. Because we all have to give our own account personally. I have to do what I have to do, just like everybody else has a job to do. And so we'll cross paths and just make sure you got that demonstration right. So I'm gonna I want to read this one last thing because we're going to become more consistent in demonstrating these measures and putting this truth out there. And so this appropriately is called Think This Over You More. Well, I'm going to end it with religious controversy and think this over you more. Well, religious controversy, savior of humanity, and think this over you more. Do that. We end it with a bang. All right. Okay. Religious controversy. In this age, there is still much religious controversy as to the right thing. Big and powerful ministers have come to the conclusion that something is wrong. Some say it is the Ten Commandments. Others say that it is a lack of sincerity in the purpose of the churches. Still, others think it is all worthless and not fit for the time it takes to attend them. However, whatever their final decision might be, it is certain they will make a change, or rather try to make one. The fact of the matter is that they have always had only a reflection of the truth and not the real thing. Like one who holds up to the sun a mirror and casts a few of its diverted rays in a different direction. So have they done with the truth that is supposed to have come from the east. There is but few people who know what the truth is about man, and that few know that it is foolish to try to impart it to the ignorant. Although the ignorant has finished college, he is a fool right on, being trained to jump through a hoop. The longer he stays in the schools, the better he can jump, and the more he defends this jumping. From the east comes all light, but though the sun is hanging at high noon, the blind cannot see. The same as the Islamic creed from the east was brought to the Asiatics of America by the Prophet Noble Ali and offered to those who were sick at heart, tried for many years, yet they are blind and cannot see the light. Nor is the prophet trying to put new wine in old skins, for he knows that it will burst them. Still, he has the only remedy for the nations, the remedy brought by Jesus, Muhammad, Confucius, and all of the other prophets, which remedy is truth. The nations do not want the truth. It is too stern. But until they accept it and find out where it is, there will continue to be religious controversy. Savior of humanity. In this electrified age, men are racing into this life without complete knowledge of where they are going or what the end will be. When riches seem to be their only pursuit, to be obtained any way and any cost, when selfishness, avarice, greed, and lust dominate their very being, when humanity in general is left at the mercy of those who have no mercy in them. It is truly wonderful and astounding to see one come into this mad human drama for the sole purpose of saving humanity, losing all sight on those things worldly and yielding absolutely to a higher cause than has ever yet been attained. This picture is the likeness of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who is serving humanity, coming as he does with the message for the nations in somewhat the same manner as did Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, and other prophets of their day. Only the things of this prophet's day differ from the ills of the days of the past, and yet the remedy for the ills of today is about the same as the remedies for the days past, all turning about the pivot of love. Love for humanity. Humanity must be lifted from the unwholesome depths of poverty, misery, and suffering, and placed on the solid rock of salvation. There are some who claim to do this, but upon investigation, one finds that they have slouched under the wings of their cross to extract from them those who come to them means by which they can have the pleasures of this life, while they point their followers to joy after death. While they feed their sheep, they also shear them while eating. At the close of their day, the master will be heard to tell them, "You have your reward. Get thee hence." Rare is it that you find a real prophet whose mission is the salvation of the nations? The land is full of false prophets whose mission is to fleece the people. The time was and now is that there should come into the land a prophet in the likeness of his brothers, to redeem them from sin and slavery. Truly, this prophet, Noble Drew Ali, is the man, bringing with him the message of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. This alone can save the nations. Like the coming of Jesus, he does not come from the elect, nor the rich, nor the mighty in worldly power, but all power is given unto him to do good. This power is from Allah. It will be his works that will make men of every nation accept the truth that he brings. It will be through his teachings that the nations of the earth will understand the will of the Master. It will be through him that peace on earth and goodwill to all men shall come. It will be through his work that humanity will be bought from the slime of life and placed on the solid rock of salvation. Islam. And last but not least, think this over, you Moors, because the prophet said, got to get you to think. If he could get you to think, he could save himself. Islam. Think this over, you Moors. Friday, February 15th, 1929. All sheiks, grand sheiks, must prepare for the prophet before he comes to visit them. Must see to it that all is clean and in perfection as far as comfort is possible, or otherwise don't arrange to have his presence. All members should pay from 25 cents to 50 cents weekly towards the emergency fund. This fund will increase so that it will soon amount to the grand sum of $1,000. That is, if you are loyal Moors. The emergency fund goes into the bank. The treasurer will tend to the responsibility of seeing that the money is in the bank, yes, and under the name of the Moorish Temple of America Finance. When needed, act accordingly to the law pertaining to the procedure of performing an emergency act. No head of any temple is to borrow from any member more than $5 to $10 unless by notification of the prophet, the necessity for the loan. When any said temple desires to purchase property, they must first notify the grand body or the prophet, and it must be purchased under the name of the Moorish Temple of America or Noble Drew Ali. An individual name should never be applied. I, Noble Drew Ali, am responsible for all finance, so therefore let I, the prophet, know what is on me. Some of you have slipped and slipped drastically, so you had better lace up your shoes before I get there. Every business transaction or anything pertaining to finance is to be transacted in the name of the Moorish Temple of America or Noble Drew Ali. We Moors must maintain a grand treasure just as in the days of our forefathers. Then you are a nation. Until then, you are nothing. The emergency fund is issued by no book, but an emergency card, punched according to the contribution, then marked on the book. That is the law, and the law must live. The government is behind me, and I must get behind you, for I must uphold and enforce the law. My mission is to save you Moors. The heads of all temples, grand sheiks and grand sheikesses, must conform to the divine principles: love, true peace, freedom, and justice. They must live a life among the members and be loved, even as the prophet is loved. They must not practice the principles of segregation among any group in his or her temple. Let it be he or she that is head to any temple of the Moorish Science Temple of America. That if there should come any grievance that cannot be settled by the head, notify the prophet at once. No member is to attend that chamber that has not lived a moral and clean life, and has not paid his or her dues or assessments, provided that he or she is working or able, cannot consider himself immoral. But traitors must be excluded from the books after having a fair trial by the head of their temple, and that must be sent into the grand body. All the members that are able to subscribe towards the upliftment fund because it takes finance to uplift the nation. And those that are able and fail to act are not Moors, but traitors to their cause and trust in their nation, and are not allowed to share in all the Moorish honors. The penalty is it is embezzlement of the faith of our creed. All heads of all temples must observe these laws by the prophet. So I wanted to say this and point this out in closing that Islam, Islam, sister. Uh, if you notice something, the prophet brought us grand sheiks, assistant grand sheiks, but if you look in the divine constitution and bylaws, you will only see grand sheiks, not supreme grand sheiks. This is another innovation. Only Allah is supreme. Praise Allah. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this. Like I say, I'm going to become more consistent in bringing this truth to the people because it's very necessary that the pristineness of the Prophet Noble Ali is brought to us. All right, Sister Delilah Pasil, Islam, thank you once again. I appreciate you, sister. And Afro Samurai, what is this trust that you speak, that you talk about? Well, the trust is in the name of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The trust was left to us as heirs and beneficiaries. So, if you want to know more about the trust, you can hit me up. We will be going into explaining exactly what that is. The fact that the Moorish Science Temple of America was named, that is the name of the trust, Moorish Science Temple of America. So if you look it up, you can research it and you'll see it. The body politic was in the same name, Moorish Science Temple of America. So that is the trust. Um, what I would suggest you do, Afro Samurai, is continue to follow the works of this administration, um, so that you could be clear on exactly what that trust is, because part of it is here in the Circle Seven Koran. All right. Yes, sister, I agree. We will be more frequent in our dispensations. Um, that's something that I'm responsible for, and we will be sharing more information with the people because we understand that there's a dire need with so many of our people that are hungry for this truth, hungry for this knowledge. We're going to be putting information out more regularly. Even though we have videos that are out there already, we're going to be putting the information out there more regularly so that the people can understand and be able to differentiate from the truth. I mean, we've done our rounds on the Facebook and on the internet and everything. Okay, Treaty of 1880 of Madrid and the 1906 Act of Algiers. Okay, see, the issue I have with that is the Prophet Noble Jali bought us. We understand the treaty, peace and friendship treaty, and it sounds like this someone is demonstrating certain, laws. And that's good that you understand and you study that. But what I would implore you to do is to study this more so than you study that other stuff. All right. Well, where exactly does the Treaty Madrid and the 1906 Act of Algiers, what does that have to do with anything that we're talking about here? We're talking about maintaining the pristineness of the Prophet. So who told you that? That's going to be my question for you. Why can't you adhere to the lessons of what this man brought? Huh? What's wrong with it with adhering to what he brought? Huh? How much do you know about that? That's the question right now that I have for you. What do you know about that? Because that's where your salvation lies. Understanding what he brought. That he brought the soul foundation. We're not talking about receiving anything from the European. It was already set up. I read chapter 47, where it speaks about the present Moroccan Empire. That's what I'm referring to. So when you're talking about the Empire of Morocco, we're speaking about the present Moroccan Empire. You're speaking about something totally different. All right. Okay, now you're talking about the treaties that the Prophet operated from. Well, how much do you know about the treaties? We understand that treaties are the supreme law of the land. But now you come in and you're demonstrating something where you should be demonstrating the pristineness of what was bought by the Prophet. He's the one that brought us chapter 29. Who is to raise the sovereign power? Who is the sultan? Who do you honor? We have a ruler. So who are you talking about, sir or ma'am? It sounds like you're bringing some innovations into the works. Now, I can go on further and further and researching the Prophet Noble Jali, the works that he brought. No one is dependent upon the European, okay? What are you talking about, sir or ma'am? Let me go ahead and read this again, because apparently there's some things that you need to understand. Okay, now, this is the part that I like to use when I'm confronted. Chapter 47, verse 15 through 17. Now, let's see if you can follow me on this. All right. You're talking about me depending upon the European. Draw for this. Share divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. The time has come when every nation must worship under its own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. Now, listen to this very closely and follow me. Make sure you follow me, Sir Afro. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774. Do the math. And the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America, who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father, and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. That's what you need to follow and focus on. The fact that there were some things that were done, we had to go through some changes. Okay, sir or ma'am, whoever you are. And so we're not talking about following the European, for goodness sake. You're talking about America is Morocco, 1952, France versus U.S. in the International Court. What does that have to do with what the Prophet Noble Ali brought us? We understand exactly where we at. This is the present Moroccan Empire, sir or ma'am. And there was a procedure. See, what was done in science had to be undone in science. All right. Now you're talking about something that as if you're trying to ignore the works of the Prophet Noble Ali. For shame. You have to follow the letter of the law as far as what he brought us. Notice that it says the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet at the top of these lessons. All right. So there's a blueprint and a code to how this is supposed to be done. Remember, the Prophet said, without me being at the head, what would occur? You see? So don't shame yourself. Don't think that you can get ahead of the Prophet Noble Ali. Understand that he brought the formula for us all to follow. All right? So you can demonstrate, talk about the Treaty of Algiers series and, all of this. I've heard it all. But from the sounds of it, it seems like you are still trying to figure it out. You don't know enough to demonstrate with the master, Prophet Noble Ali. You don't know enough. So stop thinking that you do. All right? And humble yourself and get this mastered manual deep into your psyche. How many years have you been in the organization? How many years experience do you have in government? Understanding what that is. So now you want to come into this thing where you think that you're in competition with me. You see what I'm saying? Well, your kung fu is just not good enough, sir or ma'am. He brought us the formula. He brought us what it takes to save a nation. And those are just the facts. Not some Johnny Come Latelys. You understand? He brought us what ails us. Our people are sick, mental slavery. Okay? Let me read that again. Sick with mental slavery. But as it says here in the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet, the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate. That's your problem. There you go, right there. And to know of their higher self and lower self. This is uniting of the Holy Koran of Mecca for the teaching and instruction of all Moorish Americans, etc. Until you get that part down, you still have a long, long ways to go, grasshopper. And those are the facts. So I love you, but you just don't know enough. And that's what it boils down to. You haven't studied long enough. You haven't been in the workshop of the mind for long enough to understand and to be able to demonstrate. You may know what you know. You may be brilliant in your own right. But the Prophet Noble Ali was the master hierophant. Yes, he was indeed. And until you're able to understand that, you have a long ways to go. So, you understand that. Yeah, get those lessons master those lessons. So, and this is not about the European and what the European owns. You're focusing on the wrong things. You need to focus on mastering the divine constitution and bylaws, the Circle Seven Koran, and those 101s, and the various speeches of the Prophet. Yes, we meditate. Yes, we meditate as the Prophet did. Everything that he brought us was meant for us to follow. And that's where we win. That's how we win. That's why you don't see any satirical videos about us, because we follow the prophet to a destiny that's not unknown or uncertain. And in doing that, we we steer clear of the foolishness. We don't need to focus on the dumb junk. It's not about my ego. It's about following the lessons to the letter of the law. Not thinking that I'm not being puffed up in some false belief and false understanding. You understand? Oh, yes. That's part of the reason why we have this as an instruction now. We follow this to the letter of the law. If you do that, all 48 chapters, sir, we don't skimp on nothing. We don't miss out on anything, including everything that was brought by Yeshua, also known as Jesus, everything. Now, I'm going to go into this again so that everybody is clear. Remember, holy instruction of unity. We started with that demonstration, right? So it makes sense for us to end it on this. And this is for Mr. Afro Samurai, all right? Chapter, Divine Instruction from the Holy Prophet. Chapter 26, Holy Instructions of Unity. So if you want to really unify, these are the instructions that you need to follow. The gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, and he appointed to every one his portion in what measure seemed good unto himself. Hath he not endowed thee with wisdom? Hath he enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Hath he communicated to the ignorant for their instruction, communicated to the wise for thine own improvement? True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise man doubteth often, and changeth his mind. The fool is obstinate, and doubteth not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance. The pride of emptiness is an abomination, and to talk much is the foolishness of folly. Nevertheless, it is part of wisdom to hear with patience their impertinence and to pity their absurdity. Yet, and this is for you, Mr. Alfred Samurai, be not puffed up in thy own conceit, neither boast of superior understanding. The clearest human understanding is but blindness and folly. The wise man feeleth his imperfections and is humbled. He laboreth in vain for his own approbation, but the fool peepeth in the shallow stream of his own mind and is pleased with the pebbles and showeth them as pearls, and with the applause of his brethren, delight of himself. He boasteth of attainments in things that are of no worth. But where it is a shame to be ignorant, there he have no understanding. Even in the path of wisdom, he toileth after folly. And shame and disappointment are the reward of his labor. But the wise man cultivated his mind with knowledge. The improvements of the arts is his delight, and their utility to the public crowneth with honor. Nevertheless, the attainments of virtue he accounted as the highest learning, and the science of happiness is the study of his Islam. So, all right, I have to agree with you that you can tell, I can tell you do not meditate. All right, good brother or sister, you are free to believe as you choose. All right. You can criticize me all you like. I'm open to criticism. I'm not perfect. And what you're saying about the trust has no worth. Mm-mm. Oh, fool, fool. Well, that's your belief, and you're entitled to your belief and your opinions. But with that being said, you just showed me that it really doesn't make sense. Oh God, rolling upon. Yeah, everybody has their portion. Yes, that's just true. Wise words from Sister Hasil. We're gonna I appreciate you all, even the dissenters. Uh yeah, it's amazing to me too. Yes indeed. But like Sister said, everybody has their portion, and you just have to roll with that. But I do appreciate you all coming into attendance. Um, the soldier without a foe never knows his strength, and thought must be developed at the exercise of strength. Um, we're open to criticism, just like the prophet said. Nobody is perfect, but we're striving towards perfection, and that's the key. Our intentions are on point, and it is what it is. Everybody don't have to like what we do. Okay, you're talking about land trusts. We do a whole lot of studying and educating the people as far as relates to land trust. The fact that uh, you go into our lessons, Circle Seven Koran, you'll see in chapter 47, that's part of the trust. That's the land trust right there. So like I said, we haven't just been filling our thumbs for the almost 30 years we've been in this organization. We know exactly what it is that we have. And so we have to be true to ourselves. So you and your higher self. All right. Sure, sure, sure. How many years have you been a member of this organization? Or are you even a member? See, that's the key because, you know, it's all peaceful. Everybody is going to have to give an account at the end of the day who they are. You can't hide from yourself. And when that time comes, you're going to have to give a testimony. Your own body is going to tell on you, sir or ma'am. So it's not me that you have to worry about. You know, just like that chapter of religion speaks about. You understand? We know those lessons in and out. You understand? So we understand exactly what it is. The day will come where your own tongue will confess against you, and you will be, you will have to remember. You'll be forced to remember, whether or not you was on the folly. But it's all good. We understand, that the Lord's self is strong in our people. We get it. We understand that the prophet had what ails the sickness. Our people were sick, mentally sick. And the prophet Noble Ali brought the medicine. Regardless to if you kick or scream and shout, he brought that measure. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Over 25 years. Well, like I said, we're approaching our 30th year. So we may have you by a few years, good brother or sister. But all is well. All is truly well. We all are working out the various songs, and we are all along the way on salvation. So if you're demonstrating in truth and your measure is pure, then Allah sees it all. He see it all. He don't miss nothing. His eyes pierce through the secrets of man, even the secrets of futurity. He see it all. So you ain't hiding from nothing or nobody when you demonstrating with Allah, the great God. So that being said, we're doing our work. We're doing what we call to do to make sure that the pristineness of the prophet is manifest. So for what it's worth, I give honors to you all for being in attendance. That's right. Be always ready to give an account for your actions because, you know, you may think you're getting away with something, but you're not getting away because Allah see it all, everything you do. And with that being said, I'm going ahead and sign off. It's been very peaceful demonstration. I look forward to this, and like I said, I will be doing it more regularly because I understand that the sickness of our people requires that be done. So, Brother Lovell is going to be dropping regular doses of this information on the people because it's very, very needed. It's very, very necessary. When I love you all with a never dying love, and we're going to go ahead on and sign off. We're going to say peace.